All right, everyone. Welcome to our first episode of the Walkoff on not anymore the radio station, but now you can see our lovely faces. But same old Walkoff still talking baseball, still got a lot to talk about. But of course, I'm Vincent Picone. I'm joined by the always amazing Anthony Walsh. Anthony, how are we doing, bud?
I'm doing good, doing good. I'm excited to be back on the YouTube aspect of things for our show, back on the podcast. So we could say whatever we want now. So I'm excited, man.
Yes, it's a little bit different. We will not be on WMSC until August, probably early September, is when we'll get back on. But for right now, we are here. We are excited, and we have a lot to talk about. Of course, big week for baseball, as it always is, but we're kind of creeping towards the June fun and July fun of the nice warm summer days and warm summer baseball, which means so much. But big first thing to talk about is Livy Dunn's boyfriend has officially been called up to the majors. Paul Skenes has finally found his place in the MLB home, although I'm really hoping it goes a lot better than Jack Leiter's last two starts because Paul Skenes looks to be dominant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to jinx him, but I'm pretty sure it is going to go better than than what Jack Leiter. I mean, I correct me if I'm wrong. I think he had a below 1 ERA to start this season and in the minor leagues. So, I mean, obviously you never know how it's going to go, but I mean, he's the number one prospect in all of baseball. I think he was anywhere. He's the number one pick in the 2023 MLB draft, and he's certainly close to the number one prospect in baseball. And this, I mean, look, if this team's gonna go on any sort of run, they're gonna need him. I looked through their rotation. Mitch Keller has gotten off to a disappointing start. The rest of the rotation isn't terrible, but still, I mean, this is a guy that's meant to be their ace for the next 10, 15 years. So, yeah, it's a big moment for Pirates history for sure. Anytime you invest as much as you invest in the number one pick, it's huge. And it just goes to show now in baseball, these guys get brought up so much quicker than we ever seen before. I mean, Jackson Holiday a few weeks ago, it didn't work out well, but now more than ever, it doesn't take 4 or 5 years anymore. It usually takes 1 or 2 now, especially for these big name guys. So it's cool to see.
Yeah, and I think that's good for baseball because that means the draft means a little bit more. Because honestly, these last couple of years, I heard Jackson Holiday, I heard Paul Skeens, I heard see, I can't even think. I heard Noah Schnall. I didn't even hear Noah Schnall. I listened to like the first three picks and then I'm out. James Wood. James Wood and oh, who's the other guy for the Nationals now? He played
Uh,
with Paul, played with Skeens and LSU. Smaller Drew
can't,
no, Dylan Cruz. Dylan
Dylan
Cruz.
Cruz, right? Yeah.
There we go. I did it. But big for baseball. This is gonna be amazing. He hits the 100 mark basically every pitch. So he's going to be an exciting player to watch, as he always is. But get to see him from a different level. The one thing that I'm worried about, the one thing that I'm really a little bit worried about is he kind of has a little bit of Hunter Green in him. Um, Hunter Green, not my favorite pitcher at all, because he just has speed. I want to see someone that has speed, but also has a little bit of control, which Hunter Green does not have. Actually, was watching the Reds game today, and he walked a guy to lead off an inning, and he has 8 leadoff walks to start innings, which is the most in baseball. That is ridiculous. But anyways, uh, I want to see Paul Skeens do really well, especially for a Pirates team that, let's be honest, Anthony, this team has not moved whatsoever. We've been talking about this team. This is what our third season, and they have virtually done nothing. Nothing. Their
Yeah.
biggest investment has been Andrew McCutchen, and that was really just to bring him back for the good old vibes.
No,
O'Neal
yeah.
Cruz, he's been good. He's been good, but you can't. They haven't built around him. Now they have Paul Skeens and Mitch Keller and Tim, and Bednar's kind of coming back a little bit, but how much of an improvement do you really see from this team with Skeens coming up?
I mean, unless he's gonna replicate what he's done in the minor leagues this season, which I did confirm, he had a .99 ERA in 7 games, a
That's
.91 WHIP. So I mean, if he replicates that, which is a high bar to set, then okay, maybe you could convince me that they're in contention for that third spot in the wild card. But Yeah, I don't think that this team's anywhere near that yet. Because realistically, that's probably not going to happen. He's not going to have a .99 ERA. But
Mm.
yeah, you're right. I mean, it's one of the things about being a small market team. You're not going to get very many big moves, especially with as bad as the Pirates have been these past couple of years. Now we have seen some improvements. They haven't been terrible as they were, say, in like 2020, 2021. You've seen some young guys. They've had some, solid mediocre seasons, I guess. But again, like this is going to be kind of the bar is going to be set. If he comes up and plays really well, maybe at the trade deadline they're willing to do a little bit something. Maybe this offseason they're willing to spend a little bit more money. But I think they kind of have to see it. It has to be proven first. Like I don't this isn't one of those teams like say the Mets or the Dodgers that's just going to shell out a ton of money because the expectations are there. It's a small market team. Fans care, sure, but like there's got to be a reason to spend that money. They're not just going to go ahead and do it.
And that's something that just it kind of stinks. That it's not just with baseball, but it's with kind of all sports. The small market teams aren't getting these big names. Which I mean that's just sometimes how it goes. But I mean, well, I love to see like these small teams that make it into the playoffs. I don't think this is a big playoff push for them, but this is a huge step in the future for the Pirates. Uh, Paul Skenes is going to be a lot of fun to watch, hopefully. His first starts on Saturday. So we have, as tonight, this is May 9th, Thursday night, have 2 days until, what team is he going up against, Anthony?
I believe it's the Angels. Let me see if I'm right about that. No, they're going to Pirates.
He's
Pirates on
going
the 11th.
he's going against the Cubs.
Oh, Pirates, the Cubs. Jesus, my God, it's late at night. You could tell. Yeah, the Cubs.
And it looks like he's going on a good matchup against Justin Steele, another guy who has
Yeah,
a lot of fun stuff to watch. That should be a fun rivalry game for them. Pirates at home.
yeah.
Uh, I Phillies game's on that day at 4:10, and Pirates are on at 4:05. Shockingly enough, I'll be putting on the Pirates game for sure. Uh,
There you go. That that
Gotta
that
watch
goes to
both.
show how big of a name he is. I mean, if you're gonna not watch your team for another team, there you go.
Exactly. But as much as we could talk about Paul Skenes, there's so much more to go on around the sport, and uh, kind of looking away from Paul Skenes a little bit, who I know we're all adoring right now. Kind of looking to another side of baseball. Quickly, I know we haven't really talked about this team that much, and I would say for pretty good reason. Last time we talked about them was when they signed Sonny Gray, I would think. But looking at the Cardinals now,
Hmm.
15 to 22 on the year. Wilson Contreras, he wasn't doing awful. Let me get up his exact stats right now, but not a, a great uh way to go out
He's
against the
hitting
Mets.
280 actually. I mean, he's by
Yeah, he
far
was pretty good.
the best hitter on the team. Obviously until he got hurt.
Of course.
But yeah, I mean, I was watching the game. Obviously, it was a Mets Cardinals game, and JD Martinez just took a whack right to his arm, and you just kind of knew. I mean, honestly, I'm surprised it was. I think it was a fracture. I was surprised it wasn't a full break. But
Look,
yeah,
terrifying,
yeah.
terrifying. I mean, I've seen this is what I've seen so far. I'd love to know your perspective. But I've seen kind of two different ways it's kind of been filmed. One way, it's been okay. Well, JD Martinez, he steps back in the box, like his foot is on that back line, so it's kind of his fault because he's getting in the catcher's way. And there was like a video of his like foot was like actually behind the box.
He does that for sure. Yeah,
Yeah. And on the other hand, I've seen people. Well, Wilson Contreras extended his arm fully.
I think it's a
Um,
combination of both. To be honest with you, I
that's
mean,
what I think too, because I mean, JD Martinez has been in the league for a while now, and he hasn't always been stepping this far back in the box, but with age kind of comes a little bit of timing issues, and to kind of counteract that, he's stepping a little bit back in the box, which I don't blame him for, but it hasn't happened before. It stinks that it happened now, but I think it's a little bit of both that got into it. I think first of all it was a late swing, and then second of all, I think it was a bad arm by
Yeah.
Rosa Contreras. But can imagine he's going to be out for a little while
Oh
now.
yeah.
Not very pleasant, not very fun, but still, the Cardinals continue to move on a little bit. They don't have anything fun going on in their organization as Victor Scott was not the prospect to watch. Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, kind of the back end of their couple of years.
Goldschmidt
Uh,
looks so bad. I don't. It's not even just a performance thing, like in terms of like he's lost a quick bat or anything like that. He just looks like a rookie up at the plate, swinging at pitches 3 feet out of the zone. I mean, against Adam Ottavino, I think it was the ninth inning. Ottavino was sort of on the ropes, and he swung out of a pitch that was in the other batter's box. I mean, if that was just 2 years ago, he probably would have hit it out of the stadium, or at least have a good at bat. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with him. And losing Contreras is about the only thing that like Cardinals fans had to root for. Like he's the only productive player on that team right now, and now he's gone.
no, it's definitely a blow for Cardinals fans. But it stinks because it was I, this is a team that last year I said that that was going to be their last year to contend for a for the NL Central, and then since then they just haven't picked it back up. Haven't
Yep.
picked it up. That is a team that just collapsed entirely. But nonetheless, I the computer. Um, Injuries happen sometimes, and I think this is just a deep blow to them, especially a team that just lost Yachty, and now they've lost Wilson Contreras, who definitely got to stink. Wanted to quickly move over. Now we've talked about the Central. We've talked I talked about the Central twice. And now I want to move it over to the West a little bit. Anthony, I did not tell you about this one. The Astros. The Astros are a team that, I mean, they made it to the ALCS last year, and now they don't even have 20 wins.
Shocked
13
me.
24
Yeah.
right now. And they just lost 2 out of 3 from the Yankees.
It's absolutely shocked me. I think I went as far as saying that they were going to win the division for the season. I mean that I don't want to rule out anything, but it doesn't look good now. I mean, if you would have told me that the Oakland A's would have 5 more wins than them at this point, I would have thought you were crazy. But I don't know what's going on with this team because they still have so much talent. Really, the team hasn't changed all that much from when they were winning the World Series a few years ago, and it's just I don't know if it's an age thing. I really haven't seen anybody have like a clear. I guess age is part of it because Altuve is getting older. I know obviously Justin Verlander is a shell of what he was. The Yankees were rocking him, and he's I mean what is Justin Verlander known for? Killing the Yankees. So
Mm.
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think their bullpen is nowhere near what it used to be. Uh, yeah, right now I think it's just a combination of that bullpen and just guys be getting older. I don't think they're going to be this bad the whole year. But hey, I mean, I was wrong about them winning the division, so you don't know, you never know.
I would I'm just shocked because I was watching the Yankees game today and just looking at the order. I mean, Jeremy Pena is doing an incredibly better than he was last year. He's hitting over 300, well over 300. Jose Altuve has one of the best bats in baseball. Still, he has one of the best bats in baseball. Then you have, in my eyes, a top three hitter in the league in Yordan Alvarez, and they just can't put it together right now. And you mentioned it, Anthony. Justin Verlander looks like a shell of himself. The only pitcher on that team that looks anywhere normal is Blanco, who threw the no hitter earlier this season. And I was very scared that that was going to be his one good start and then he was never going to be able to replicate it. I was wrong. Because he's been very good, very, very good. But Astros not not doing justice to their fans right now. Just I mean, they've looked like a shell of themselves in all. But like the stats aren't adding up for me.
No, yeah, it's true. I don't. It's just one of those things where like prior to the season, I said, okay, maybe they're not what they were, when they were winning World Series, but this is still such a talented team, and like you said, you go down the lineup: Altuve, Bregman, Pena, Mauricio Dubon, Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez. Like these are all guys I expect to be hitting like at the very least for some of them 270, 260. And it just hasn't been there. I mean, I do get that it's a tough division. I understand that. I respect it. I mean, pretty much everybody in the division is playing well right now. Especially the Rangers and Mariners right now, even 2 games above 500. But I don't know. I mean, let me ask you: do you think that this is just going to be the Astros the whole year? Do you think they're ever going to be even in wild card contention?
I'll I'll say last year they started off 0-4. And everyone was kind of freaking out about it. But then they find themselves in the ALCS. Somehow, some way, this team always competes. Always competes. And I especially think we have 4 solid more months of baseball to watch. 4 very solid baseballs, or 4.5, 4 and 3/4 of baseball to watch. The Astros can turn it on whenever they want. They have so much time. And I know, yeah, the the Rangers are doing really good. The Mariners are doing really good. 2 teams with 20 wins so far this season. But in all honesty, the Astros are only 8 games back. It is not that far. Not that far at all. I think they're going to need to put in a little bit of work. Something needs to happen. I mean, they only have 7 wins at home right now. 7-12 at home isn't really a pretty record to look at, especially when you're playing on home turf. Uh, but I still think that they'll come back. I'll say I won't stop thinking that they're going to come back until late August.
Really that far? Okay. I mean, look. I mean, this is the bottom line. These are the guys that are going to have to play better. I mean, as you've just been talking, I've been going through the numbers.
Mm.
Obviously, Verlander, who we've already mentioned, Framber Valdez has almost a 4 ERA. I mean, we talked about on the show numerous times how important that guy is to when they have success. So, I mean, the fact that he has almost a 4 ERA right now is telling. Hunter Brown, 8.89 ERA. Not that Hunter Brown was ever anything great, but I mean, 8.89, you got to be kidding me. And Josh Hader at a 5.63 with only 4 saves. So, I mean, those guys alone, not to just take away the hitting in general, which has been really bad, if those guys are keeping anywhere near those numbers, they're going to be the worst team in that division outside of the A's. And I don't know. I just don't see those guys being that bad the whole season. Maybe Verlander, given because of his age, but the rest of those guys I named there, Valdez still fairly young. Brown, same thing. Hader, same thing. So I don't know, man. It's tough to say that they're going to be in the top half of that division again with winning the division. But it's also tough to say they're going to be terrible. I think the answer is probably going to be they're going to be at like 85, 86 wins, competing for a wild card spot, and that'll be it, which is disappointing. Even if they get the wild card spot from that, it's hugely disappointing.
I'll say one stat that kind of interests me the most is their games against teams over 500 right now. And right now it's kind of all over the place because it's still early in the season. But out of their so far 37 games, they're 9-23 against teams over 500, which is an awful record, awful record. But it tells me that they are versing a lot better teams in competition to them. Just wait till they get to, because to compare it really quickly, I hate to do this to myself because I really don't want to, but the Phillies, who are 26-12 right now, have only faced 9 or only had 9 uh games with teams over 500, and they're 6-3 in those games. So I think that the Astros are going to come to a point where they're heating up just a little bit, and they're going to verse the White Sox, verse the Tigers. They'll go out there, they'll verse the A's, that, and they'll win. And then it's going to look like this team is insane again because they're getting all this tough competition out of the way right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, if not that they're hot right now, but it's if there's ever going to be a time to eat up on some wins, starts tomorrow night at 6:40. You got the Tigers series, you got the A's series. Uh, when's ever a better time? Then you go get the Brewers, good team, but then back to the Angels, A's after that. So if you're ever going to get back to that spot where you say, okay, this team's a competitor, how about right now?
That exactly. I think they're going to catch fire, and I think it's not going to be like this big fire that people are going to say. I'm not saying they're going to be beating like the Rangers and the Braves and the Dodgers and all these guys. I'm saying they're going to be beating small teams. They're going to beat small teams. They're going to find their way back to the 500 mark, and then we're going to do this entire thing again. Well, they're finally coming back, and then us on the walk-off will know what happened, what really happened in the Astros organization. Um, but yes, the
Let me
fun.
ask you one final thing, then we'll get to get another topic. Do you
Okay.
think this is the end of the Astros, even if they go and get to a wild card spot and maybe win a series? You think that this is the end of the Astros reign of, you want to call it a dynasty, whatever you want to call it? Is this the end of the Astros being totally dominant?
Oh, Anthony, this is a tough question.
I wanted to give you a good question here.
This is a great one. I think I don't think it is. I
Okay.
and I think it might be the end of the great pitching staff that we've seen. I mean, you remember that 2022 pitching staff from the Astros? Like those bats really didn't need to be as good as they were. They just needed to put 3 runs up there a game, and they would have won 90 games.
True.
Their pitching was so amazing, so I mean, they no hit the Phillies in the World Series. And I know the bats died kind of for the Phils, but it it speaks to how good that pitching staff was. I think it's the end of the pitching staff because now I think pitching staff, and I don't want to again don't want to sound biased, but like the Phillies with Ranger and Wheeler and Nola, they have been great. I think the Pirates are going to be great with Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, and now Paul Skenes. It's going to be fun to watch. The Yankees are even fun to watch now. The Mets were fun to watch at the start of the season, but like the Astros haven't really been that fun, and that's weird because it seems like they're always churning out different pitching prospects, which is awesome, awesome. Uh, but I think it's the end of that. I don't think it's the end of the hitting. Yordan Alvarez, I if they trade someone, which might happen, they're not trading. They're not going all Marlins out there, and they're not trading their 3 best players. Jose Altuve is probably going to be an Astro for life. That would be awesome. Jeremy Pena, in his young career right now, has been he had a good rookie year. He had a bad sophomore year. He is back and he looks great. And Yordan Alvarez, that is my favorite hitter in baseball, is Yordan Alvarez. Um, so to answer your question, no, I don't think this is the
Okay.
end of their reign. But yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I will say I partially agree if they could find a worthy replacement for Justin Verlander. I
Mm.
think because I think he's pretty much done. I think he could be semi-productive, but he's nowhere near the ace he was even a couple of years ago. So replace him with a worthy ace. Okay.
I I mean there's a couple names out there that I bet they could go get, but you pick up I know we'll start doubting them, and then they'll go and trade for someone, and then they'll pull someone out of the farm system, and they'll be right back on track because they're scary. They've turned themselves into a big market team, which is awesome. Um, now we did not talk about this last week because it did not happen last week. It happened just a little bit after our week, but 2 big things happened. Um, 2 big things, one organization, 2 negatives, and this time 2 negatives do not make a positive. The Marlins organization takes a huge blow in 2 different ways. Um, Monte Harrison, who is in the minor leagues, has just committed to Arkansas to be a wide receiver. Why is this important, you may ask? Why is this important? Well, let's look back to 2018. I'm going to pull it up really quickly. Let's pull it up to 2018, right on the money, to talk about Christian Yelich and the Brewers and the Marlins. So on 2018, which was another Thursday night, Christian Yelich got sent to the Brewers in exchange for baseball's number 13 prospect at the time, Lewis Brinson, infielder Isan Diaz, outfielder Monty Harrison, and right-handed pitcher Jordan Yamamoto. Now,
Okay.
where are these guys right now? Well, Christian Yelich is kind of having a little bit of a comeback after winning an MVP and a Silver Slugger. Lewis Brinson is playing in the Mexican League right now. Uh, Isan Diaz is in the Atlantic League. Monty Harrison, as I just said, committed to playing Arkansas football right now as their wide receiver. And Jordan Yamato, well, he's a high school baseball coach right now in San Diego. So, what I'm hearing from right this is the Marlins made an awful trade uh, back in 2018, and 6 years later, it's biting them again as they trade Luis Arias to the Padres, which I mean, it is May. It is May. The Marlins made it to the playoffs last year. And then they pulled a Dr. Doofenshmirtz and they hit the self-destruct button. They said, it's working. I don't want it anymore. Get out of my sight. And they blew it up. The batting champ has been traded to the Padres. And on his first night, he had a 4-hit night.
Well, that's what he does. I mean, you can't say that that could shock anybody because I mean, he's a batting champion contestant every single year. But yeah, I was equally as surprised to see it happen this early as I think everybody else was. All I'll say is this: they better not have a repeat of what happened in 2018. These prospects that they got, which was a lot, I think it was like 4 prospects,
Mm.
better work out because this is the guy that, like I said, consistently over 300. If he ends the season hitting 300, it's almost low for him. Like that's how good he is. And he's also not going to be an undrafted free agent for another couple of years, 2026. So it's not like this is one of those situations, say, like if the Mets totally fall apart with Pete Alonso, who's just going to be a free agent, and then, you're not going to get anything from him anyway. Like, you have control of this guy. And I get, like, the frustration. Okay, you have so many injuries, and we've gone over it, Contra, Yuri Perez, and all that. But, like, those guys are going to be back. And you're telling me you don't want a constant 300 hitter in your lineup? I don't know. I mean, I could go on for hours about how much I hated moving on from Kim Ng, and I don't want to, totally hate on Peter Bendix because he's only been with the Marlins for a short amount of time and it's gone terribly. But still, I mean, it's been a short amount of time. But this, I don't know. I'm not going to claim to be some prospect expert. For all I know, there could be two of the next great MVP type players in that deal. I don't know. But all I could say right now is a guy that's in his prime hitting over 300. And like you've said, they were in the playoffs last year. This is look to be a team on the rise, is now taking 5 steps back, it seems. So,
I,
sometimes these types of deals are misleading, and we'll look back at this a few years from now and say, we were crazy, so and so is going to turn out to be a really good player. But man, I really cringe whenever a team gives up a guy like this because everybody looks at the launch angle, everybody looks at the home run. It's about the guy that gets on second base and is in scoring position that really wins you the game. I hate to break it to all the the stat cast nerds out there. This is what gets it done.
and you want to know what? Last year, that was the best trade in baseball, at least the most fair trade in baseball. Pablo Lopez for Luis Arias. Marlins needed hitting, they got a hitter. Twins needed pitching, they got pitching. Both teams made it to the playoffs. Marlins didn't win a game, but they made it to the playoffs for the first time since 2020, which was a fluke season, and prior to that, the first time since 2003. Um, and Twins, they won their first series in the playoffs since 2004. So both of these guys played a huge role, and then you just throw it away. I I saw a clip from Ken Rosenthal when he was on the Foul Ball podcast, and he said basically there's two things that you can do in this situation when you make it to the playoffs and you didn't really think you were going to get there that year, and that is one, you can kind of build with it and say, hey, we got lucky, but we're going to build with it right now, or you can do what the Marlins did and just blow it up. I mean, they had pieces, and I think a big part of what hurt them was Jorge Soler leaving. It, Yuri Perez is out for the year. Alcantara is out for. Is he out for the year or is he out for just for?
Tommy John, so either after the year or the majority of, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they took some big hits, but I mean, you can't just say, you know, to hell with it and just throw it all away. I You know how many people would kill, how many there is 30 ML there's 29 MLB teams out there, I guess, because the Marlins do not care. That would kill for somebody that can hit above 300 consistently. The Astros have two players that can hit over 300. They would kill for a third. Uh, I saw the Twins lineup today. They have like their 2 through 5 hitters are all, or their 2 through 4 hitters are all hitting over 300. They would kill for Luis Ariz. Everyone would kill for Luis Ariz. He is an amazing player, two-time batting champ, 2 years in a row, and you gave him away. Now on the Padres side, I think this is a steal. Although I'm still confused about where they're going because just a couple months now we were told that they were taking out loans to pay their players. So I was like, okay, they're blowing it up. Then they traded Juan Soto. And then they said, you want to know what? We're actually back. We're trading for Dylan Cease, who almost threw a no-hitter against the Cubs, except for an infield single against the 36-year-old Yan Gomes. And then now they're trading for Luis Arias.
Yeah, this is another one of these teams that's just sort of stuck in the middle. I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, I'm assuming they're just going to try to get the best out of him over this season and next season until they have to eventually pay him, and he's going to get a pretty big payday as long as he stays healthy. I mean, I'll go as far as to say 180, $200 million, maybe more. Um, I don't, yeah, I don't know. This Padres really, I don't get the financial situation. I remember that they didn't have a team that was broadcasting their games. Like you said, taking out loans to pay some of these guys, getting Juan Soto off the team. I mean, I like the pickup for the team, but realistically, what is it really going to do for them if they're not going to be willing to invest in, say, the trade deadline or invest after the season in free agency? I mean, you have to do some investing in order to win. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, and as far as the Marlins side of things goes, like if they want to sell some guys that, okay, like you could get something for, but isn't going to totally cripple your team, why not get rid of Josh Bell? Why not get rid of maybe Tanner Scott? I actually like Tanner Scott. I remember like before the season saying like he's one of the underrated players on the team. But like you could part with a guy that's a solid closer, and then you could get away with getting giving him up and getting something and being okay with it. Like Luis Arias, you're not gonna find a guy that hits 320 just out there and floating in the wind. You could find a good reliever that you can morph into a closer maybe, but like I there's options there is my point if you want to sell. And I get Josh Bell hasn't been amazing yet, but he'll pick it up. He's a guy that's going to hit 260, 270. So why not get rid of a guy like that instead of giving up Luis Arias? You're going to get less, sure, but the team's also going to lose less. So like, I don't know. I just don't get it.
I don't, yeah, I mean, we're kind of at the same point. It's just, it just, like, you're right, Anthony. They have a pyramid of guys that they could work with. And I mean, you could have traded someone like Brian De La Cruz and then just kind of like sent him out, who he does very good. He does very good. Um, but instead you went for the top of the pyramid. And now, like, it's crazy to think, but like the Marlins are worse than the Nationals.
Yeah, definitely.
And the Nationals are playing pretty good baseball. They're 18 and 18. Right now, the Padres are 20 and 20. The Marlins are 10 and 30. 10 and 29. I apologize, but maybe tomorrow they'll be 10 and 30. Um, it just it's such a downfall because this was a team that was a lot of fun to watch last year. For like they they played in the most one-run games last year, which was very exciting for them. But it just it feels like they just blew it up over there and that they do not care anymore. And that there's sometimes that just happens, and that's life, and we got to deal with it here at the Walkoff. But a lot of fun to come from San Diego, hopefully. I would hope. I'm gonna say I hope at least 3 shows from now. So 21 days. 21 days. I hope 21 days from now, the Padres are at least 5 games over 500.
If they're not, I don't know what they're still doing holding
I
on to some of these guys. That really baffles me. If
I
that's the case.
they've played uh, out of their 40 games, they played 17 teams over 500, and now they're going to play. They'll play LA. Then they'll play Colorado. After that, they go play Atlanta. So kind of like a punch in the face. Hopefully, an easy one coming, and then another punch directly in the face. Uh, we'll have to see. I like the Padres. I'm kind of interested to see what they do with themselves, but we'll definitely keep you updated on that one. Now, Anthony, are as we come to kind of closer towards the end of the show, before I get to ask you your final questions, which I always love doing on our podcast. Uh, we have our home run sheet, our exciting home run sheet. Uh, I picked Mookie Betts last week. Luke and Tom are asleep. I know this because I was texting them today. I don't have their picks. I really should have asked them for it. But I'm just awful at what I do, so I did not ask him. Um, but I'll see them tomorrow, so I'll ask them tomorrow. Anthony, you picked Adley Rushman.
Yes.
Adley Rushman had a home run. I picked Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts did not have a home run.
Did not. Yep.
And Luke picked Ketel Marte, who had two. No idea who Tom picked. It's okay. Though coming up on this next week, Anthony, this is an interesting pick.
Yes.
I'm gonna say this is very weird. Uh, I'm excited to hear your reasoning.
Really. Okay.
You know, I'm just gonna hand it off to you, Anthony. Who did you pick?
I went with JT Realmuto, Vincent's favorite catcher,
He is my favorite catcher.
and I'll give you my reason.
Okay.
You're starting a series against the Miami Marlins.
Okay.
That's one major reason. And I hate to, lay it on the Marlins, but they're pretty bad right now, including their pitching. So I'm just hoping that in that series he gets a home run or two. And then unfortunately, facing my Mets, who I don't want to sound like I don't have any confidence in, but we have been known to give up the long ball, especially this season.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, if you happen to face, I don't know, say Luis Severino on a bad day or Sean Manaea on a bad day, they can give up some home runs. So I will say though, and I don't know, I think you're facing him. Let me see. No, you're not. He's pitching Saturday. Christian Scott. I got to give some love to Christian Scott. Christian Scott against the Rays, his MLB debut was amazing. I don't think enough people are talking about this kid. He's looks really good. You guys will not face him, but still, I gotta give some love to the Mets pitching. But with the combination of Marlins pitching and Mets pitching, I think Realmuto is a solid pick.
I like that pick. I like that pick. Um, and I like your reasoning for it. It's not always a good reason, but that was a good reason. Especially facing his old team. Could definitely see it. Could definitely see it. Especially, I mean, another thing we didn't really talk about today, but Trey Turner is out for 6 weeks, which sucks because he has been great. And I hate to see it because I love that team so much. But Edmundo Sosa coming in, playing second base, and stops being moved over to short. Whit Merrifield to him. Switching spots every once in a while. Though it is time for my pick. So I'm going with a guy that has 4 home runs in his last 7 games. Two of which, or I believe he hit two the other day.
Let me know the name. I'll look it up for you.
Here, wait. Actually, I'm gonna let me quickly check. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. He had 3 home runs the other day.
Really? Okay.
Max Muncy is my guy this week.
Underrated pick. Yes.
I really like Max Muncy, and him and Teoscar Hernandez has really been guys that have hit the ball really well as of late. But especially Max Muncy. So I'm gonna go with Muncy for my big pick. 3 home runs the other day against Atlanta. He had one the other day, 2 days ago now, against Miami. Uh, with them going up against the Padres, he's gonna have to face some pitching, but not really too much because Padres pitching isn't too good after Dylan Cease, and that's really it. At least in my eyes. Am I missing anybody?
I think that's it.
Yeah. See, that's our problem with the Padres because They keep on upgrading their hitting, and then they go out and get Dylan Cease, but there's nothing to add to Dylan Cease. I have a
I will
problem.
say to
And
support your
Joe
pick,
Musgrove, but Joe Musgrove is not that guy.
I think Max Muncy is one of those guys that, like, doesn't get enough credit for like how good the Dodgers have been these past few years. Not that I mean, we both agree they haven't won a real championship, but still, Max Muncy's like just a very consistent guy. Plays, hits. Not a big name, but I like the pick. That's why I said he's underrated because he's not might not be the flashy name on that team that has a star in every position, but he's very consistent and one of those guys that could, as he already has, hit a lot of home runs in a short amount of time. So I like the pick.
Yeah, I mean, Max Muncy's my guy. I'm excited to see what he does, and of course, I feel like the three teams that I consistently watch as much as I can are the Braves, Dodgers, and Phils. I can't watch the Mets. I'm sorry, can't watch the Yankees. So any Yankees fan out there, I can't watch them.
Blackout restrictions. We hate blackout restrictions over
Oh,
here.
cannot stand them. Uh, but yeah. Now, Anthony, as we come towards the end of our show, a couple questions I want to ask you.
Go ahead.
So we didn't really get to talk about him during our show today. But okay, I'm gonna say his name, and I have been reading a lot, but reading is not listening. So, uh, I've been really excited for Shoto Imanga.
Hmm.
He had his first no decision the other day against the Padres. Jurkison Profar hit a 2-run home run against him, and then they tied it up in the top of the eighth. Or again, and then the Cubs had to tie it up in the top of the eighth. Do you think I do you think by the end of this year he will be the best signing of the year?
That's a good question. I will say so far he definitely is. I think the competition's really going to be between him and Yamamoto, as cliche as that might sound, because they're two huge names, and obviously they're compared against each other. But yeah, I'm going to say he is. I think Yamamoto. I mean, listen, this isn't to say that Yamamoto isn't going to be a good pitcher. Yamamoto, as we've already seen, has greatly improved from his disastrous start down to a 2.79 ERA.
Mhm.
But there's still been a lot of problems with his fastball. His fastball is very straight, and he's learning now that in Major League Baseball, just because you throw 100 or just because you throw 98, 99, really doesn't mean a lot if it's straight right down the middle or just straight in general. Has to have some movement.
Yeah.
And even though he's improved on that, there's going to be struggles again, unless he's totally gotten over it. But as we've seen with guys coming over from foreign countries, it's a big learning process we've seen so many times. But Imanaga now, like, he's just one of these guys that, like, he hasn't been talked about a ton. And he, like, go through the numbers: 5-0, 1.08 ERA, 41 innings already so far, 43 strikeouts in those 41 innings, 0.82 WHIP. Like, that's an amazing WHIP, walks and hits per innings pitched. So I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. But Yamamoto is good competition. I'm not gonna totally rule him out, but I'm gonna say yes to Imanaga.
I'll say he's definitely the most surprising for me.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that for sure.
well, you wanna I'm not even gonna say surprising because when he got signed, I kind of thought it was weird that one, he was being put in the three hole or the three, not the three hole, but the third pitching spot for the Cubs because I thought he was going to be great. I had never seen any of his tape, but just kind of like thinking about like one, if you're coming over from any country, if you're being signed out of any country, you have to be really good. And especially if you've already played Major League over there, now you're just going straight to the majors, you're skipping the minors. Yes. So I kind of had it in the back of my head that like maybe he'll be good, but you're right. Yamamoto's bringing the ERA down. I think Otani, by the end of the day, he'll always be the best, but
True. You got to take a caveat for him because I mean, he's
he
he's
he's
yeah,
he's the best player in baseball, and
yeah.
especially next year. Next year should be very interesting to look at. Uh, yeah, Yamamoto's second season with the Dodgers. If Amanga can keep this up, his second season with the Cubs, and Otani's first season pitching with the Dodgers, that should be really interesting. Um, but we'll have to wait a little bit till then. Um, And really, my next big question to you, and if you don't know, that's okay. If you're just out of these two teams,
Hmm.
um, which one has shocked you which one has shocked you the most? Now we've already talked about one, but the other
Okay.
one we did not talk about today. Are you more shocked by the disastrous Astros or A's and Nationals both looking like competitive baseball teams?
I would say more shocked by the Astros. A's have shocked me. Nationals partially shocked me. I knew they were gonna, even if they were gonna be in last place, I thought they were gonna be somewhat competitive.
Mhm.
So that didn't totally shock me. A's, yes. We've already said, like, when you looked at that lineup and looked at that rotation, there's like literally no talent there. So that's very shocking. But the Astros, I always have to be more surprised when a team that has a lot of expectations underperforms than I am when a team that has low expectations kind of performs. Because, like, even then, we're talking about a Nationals and A's team that isn't going to do nothing special. Like, the fact that the Astros might not even make the playoffs in this expanded playoffs is absolutely shocking to me. So I got to go with the Astros ahead of the Nats and the A's. What about you?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna say the A's and the Nationals, just because last year when we saw the Cardinals fall, just kind of started thinking that like maybe teams are like this is how dynasties don't fall by like, okay, the guys are too old, we're gonna start trading them and all that. Like it's not like the last dance in baseball. At least we haven't seen it. It's not like the last dance where they're like, all right, everybody's gonna retire now. We're firing the coach. It doesn't matter that we won a championship. It's all over now. Um, but it's just kind of like it's gonna happen, and you don't really know when it's gonna happen. Even if you have two guys that have really done amazing things, and one of them won MVP 2 years ago, like it can all collapse in one year. But kind of bouncing back is a little bit different. I feel like in other sports you can see teams like shock the world, but baseball we don't really see that because it's such a long season that even if you are doing really good, how long can that sustain for? So right now I'm more shocked by the A's and the Nationals. I also like the Nationals, so I have nothing against them. And it's impressive that they're doing this without Dylan Cruz or James Wood on their team, who I'm both very excited to see when they get up to the
Well,
majors.
let me ask you this then: Do you will you go as far as to say that the Nationals have either about as good as a record as the Mets or better than the Mets?
No.
Okay.
Well, it depends on what the Mets do at the trade deadline. Um, if Pete says his goodbyes, uh, well, I'm not even gonna go that far. I think the Nationals will have the worst record. Uh, the worser record. I don't think they're gonna be in last place. It looks like the Marlins are gonna be in last place. But even if the Mets lose, Pete still have Lindor. And I mean, you mentioned him for a second there, but the pitching staff for the Mets has been looking really good.
It
I
has, yeah, it has.
it, so
I,
it's been impressive.
I will say though, I mean, if they even if they're in somewhat wild card contention, I do want this team to just kind of sell. I don't think this like guys like Jeff McNeil, Marte, even yeah, like guys like that. Oh, my webcam went out, but now I'm back. Okay, but guys like that, I mean, I really just don't see much of a future for them on this team.
Mhm.
Marte being older, McNeil being way too inconsistent. I don't know. I really I don't want to be this team that's like at 82 wins and we're just stuck with these older players and not even with McNeil not that old, but just guys that are way too inconsistent. I'd rather be a team that's a shell of itself and builds itself back up and see some of these young kids than be like 82 wins.
Yeah, that always stinks. 'Cause, like I remember when the Phillies were just starting to get good, it was like I don't think they're ever going to make the playoffs. And then, but and the Phillies, right? They did something that I think any team with Bryce Harper would do, and that's just buy up anybody and anything possible so that Bryce Harper's happy, which it's worked so far.
Not a bad
Um,
philosophy. I can't say it's a bad one.
it has philosophy. So far, so far. I remember when people saying that Zach Wheeler was overpaid when he got started, and then I was like, I think he's getting overpaid, and now he is probably one of the best pitchers in baseball. Um, well, Anthony, as we come to the end of our first week as uh as a podcast again, we would like to thank you all for listening to the walk off. We'll be right back here next Thursday, and next Thursday we'll be rejoined by, well, let's not go that far, but we may be rejoined.
Pending the results of the New York Rangers game.
Yeah, pending the results of the New York Rangers, we'll see if he wants to come on the show. We got a very fun text from our friend Justin saying that the Rangers won and he lost his voice, which does not shock me because we have a couple stories of Justin just starting to scream in the middle of class because uh because the Rangers won. I remember he screamed in the middle of class and it was just like a regular season game. I was like, what even happened there? He's like, oh well, they scored a goal and it was very big, and I was like, it's not the playoffs, and he's like, no, it's not. Like, oh, like okay, but we'll see if that works next week. Anyways, thank you all for coming once again, and we'll see you next week. Another week of baseball in the books.